Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from California. I'm here together with Dr. Kheder. I'm very pleased to have this second round of webinars. Uh, First of all, let me introduce Dr. Kheder. Dr. Kheder is a professor. He is also had got his PhD at Washington University in the United States. He's got his master at the same university and BSc in computer science from Kuwait University. Dr. Kheder is experienced in e-learning, has many years, has written multiple papers in this field. He also has written a white paper about the role of information and communication technology in plant genetic resource future, among many, and has authored several books, including Informatics Security Intelligence and Effective Strategy for Establishment of E-Government. Today, I invited Dr. Kheder to talk about the future of XR, virtual and augmented reality, but also to talk about tangible aspects of how it is used today in North Africa, in Middle East, and Arabic world. So I'm very honored and grateful to have you. It's a pleasure to meet you, and welcome to this webinar. Thank you, Dr. Kheder.
Welcome, Dan. It's really a great pleasure for me to contribute and participate in this important event with Eon Reality, and a very esteemed and progressing company in this industry.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Before we get started, I just want to get the audience a little bit familiar with where we are. So I'm right now in Southern California, Laguna Beach, outside just a few yards from the Pacific Ocean. And you are where?
I am in Kuwait.
In Kuwait. And what time is it there at the moment? It's late afternoon, correct?
It's 10 past 6.
Yes. So as you know, I'm been fond for many, many years of Arabic cultures. I've had the honor and pleasure to visit many of the locations. I've been to Kuwait multiple times, North Africa, and I'm also very passionate about history. So as a passionate person about history, of course, I learned a lot about the Arabic culture and the advances of science, technology, and education, including one of the first universities in the world that were in Arabic world, the invention of mathematics, the guidance of stars. So your culture and your part of the world has been the pioneer that speared our civilization and enabled many of the discoveries that we've done. But I'm also fascinated how this can go in waves, right? And sometimes you excel. And in the last, I would say, 300-400 years, the traditional Western world has had an advantage. But every time new technology comes, I think there's an opportunity to reshuffle the cards, so to speak. So, because technology is an equalizer, and especially what we're going to talk today. Today, we're going to talk about XR, virtual augmented reality. And what I love about it, and the reason we'll talk about how this is deployed throughout the Arabic world in different locations. I want to have your take on it. But what I like about the equalizing factor is that there are 4 billion people today, most of the world population, that have a mobile device in their pocket. And by having that already, this makes XR available, accessible, and affordable, which is our mantra. So the first question I would like to ask you in this context is, how do you see that? How do you see this transition from the old way of learning, e-learning, and the new way of learning, the future of today, which is XR for learning, training, and performing? Thank you.
Right. Well, let's say you started with a very big question. There isn't an easy answer to that. So simply, especially in my region, the Middle East, although I'm living in Kuwait, but I'm originally from Syria. And that's a very rich country when it talks about history. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I remember a French archaeologist, his name is André Barraud. Mm-hmm. He says every civilized person on earth has two countries, his own and Syria. It's that ancient. Now, having said so, with this type of long heritage, the technology, we contributed a lot throughout the civilization that came to our region, being a Middle East. So every the turbulence that happens in the world, we get along with it. When the Greek was ruling, we got ruled by the Greek. When the Romans ruled, we got ruled by the Romans. When the Arabs ruled, we got ruled by the Arabs. When then the Turks ruled, we got ruled by. So with this diversity.
You know, I'm from Sweden. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm from Sweden, and if you've been to Sweden, it's cold, miserable, and we haven't been occupied much. So one of the blessings with your region, it's rich, it's fertile. If you look at Middle East today, it has all the oil and gas. So it's natural that it always big powers tend to collide in the struggle of getting to what you have. So
absolutely,
that's the backside of being very successful and having a nice region. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a blessing and it's a curse at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, back to your question. Unfortunately, the Arabic world, although they contributed a lot to the science, and I can mention the greatest contribution was in mathematics by creating the decimal system, and namely the zero. And nobody knows that the zero was created by the Arabs, and what's now called English numerals are actually Arabic numerals.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so at least you know this fact. So this is our greatest contribution, along with the algorithms. The entire algorithm science is based on Al-Khwarizmi, who's an Islamic Arabic scientist, lived in during the 1,000 year where the Arab Islamic civilization flourished. Having said so, that and due to many factors in our region, we didn't catch up with the technology after the Renaissance. Let's say after the year 1500. Although we contributed a lot to that evolution, but we never picked up what happened later on.
So I'm curious to hear your view, because I read a lot about why that shift happened and why perhaps we're in a new shift today when there's a rebound. And what's your view from that?
Any civilization to be stable, it needs three factors. You need scientists, you need money, and you need soldiers. Any breakdown in any of these three pyramids, then it moves to another. The civilization moves to another area where these three pyramids are stable.
Interesting.
Scientists, money, and soldiers. When I mean money, I mean people who trade and generate money and all this stuff. Soldiers means I mean commanders, leaders, and of course scientists, people who can create and make our lives a better way. We contributed our share for 1,000 years. Then there was a turbulence in those three pyramids. It moved to another place.
You're very right, because if you look at the beginning of Renaissance with Medici family, the wealth of trading enabled to attract the artists and the scientists. And you could also argue that the plague eliminated 70-80% of humanity, including the rich people. So there was a reshuffling of talent that could perhaps contribute. Anyway, not to interrupt you, please continue.
Yes. So for the last 20 years, I've been promoting the idea of better communities. How can we really, as a Middle Eastern, how can we pick up the pace of the technology, and instead of consuming the knowledge, we need to produce it. I mean, for how long we gonna consume? For the last, I don't know, for the last 100 years, as far as I remember, we are just consuming knowledge. Everything is imported. Everything, So there are other areas where we have our own productions when it comes to agriculture and some art crafts industry, and we are okay. But when it comes to heavy industries and advanced industries, we are always consuming the knowledge, but never generating it. So my main target was to help these communities to give them a better life through provision of ICT as a technology, in order to provide the necessary information for them, so they can easily convert to more knowledge communities where they use knowledge in their normal life, and they can easily later on generate this knowledge on a sustainable matter. This is important. You not only to generate the knowledge itself, but you have to maintain that pace. That's what called sustainability.
Would you agree? Through my travels, and I've had the pleasure to travel 60, 70 times throughout the region, and what my perception is the Arabic world, and it's very difficult to generalize. There's a big difference between North Africa, Morocco, Egypt, with a rich movie industry and so on, to the GCC that have a slightly different culture. But if you were to say as an umbrella, what's a common denominator in my world is Arabic people have a deep root in arts, in poetry, are very sensible in a way that we almost lost it in our world, in our Western world. I don't see the same sensibility, I would say. Also very visual. I think for example, things like Instagram, the highest rate of usage of this type of very visual technology is perhaps in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, right? To a degree that we don't have it in the West. So there is something, and I can't put my finger on that, resonates with the Arabic culture with regards to this XR, experiential learning. You get that instant attraction. And in one way, you can say it's strange because if you look at it from an Islamic perspective, the depiction of images, of pictures, of faces has its challenges. So could you elaborate on that and why that is? Why do we see this attraction, this magnet, much stronger in the Arabic world than elsewhere?
The spread of use of technology, and especially the communication technology in the Arab world, simply because we are very social people. Like we said, we are good. We are expert in arts and music and these humanitarians. And these human type relations, and we like to communicate a lot and know what's happening. This curiosity that made us go out through all the world, starting from the early stages in the history. We like to explore. We like to go beyond. But when it comes to that area that you mentioned, Islam, I have to disagree with you because there is no contradiction. Actually, Islam encourages us to go for arts and to go for science and to go for everything. The first revelation in Quran, which is the main Bible in Islam, was to the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him. The first revelation was read. God sent him the message, read. And he said, but I cannot read. I'm illiterate. I can't. No, you have to read. You have to learn how to read. So this is the first invitation for people that they have to get to know more. They have to get high education. They have to get high standards. They have to get the knowledge. And that's what mainly behind this spread of or this passion for using technology in any way possible. Again, I don't want to deviate from the main question. I don't want to see that.
No. This is an open dialogue, and
very good. So
we can talk about most topics, but it is actually, in my mind, very crucial. Because what EON is attempting to do is to democratize the use of XR. And I've got a question here in the question box while we were talking. Where has EON activated this year such XR deployment? So, what I'd like to do is to share a map and talk with you about the various locations. I know you haven't been involved in all of them, but you have been involved in some of them, and maybe you can also share your experience, what happens today, because I think that's a very relevant question. And let me just see if the technology works and I can share my screen. So just bear with me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, there we go. I pull up right now the testimonials. And you should be able to see that on the screen momentarily. Let's see, I'll share the screen. Yeah. So there you go. This is a map that, you see my screen now?
Yes.
This is a map that was established this year because we used to get a lot of questions like, okay, so who's using this technology and what do they do with it? So we took the initiative, so it's very fresh, to put different positions on the map where we have a presence, and then also a little bit of story, what they do with this technology. So I'll start with a few and then I'll pass it to you if that's okay.
Yes, please.
But let's start with something, because actually, why don't we start with something that concerns us all? Because we all been looking at the news, and we have seen many things happening, and of course we all very unhappy about the current conflict going between Israel and Palestine, and we've been working for many years in Palestine. We've had, I think, almost 15 years relation in Palestine with the university, and Palestine in general has been a big user of this. We think that this type of technology can promote peace and can promote a common understanding. So we've been doing travels both to Israel and Palestine. Obviously, we have no power to do anything other than to try to help to the extent and to allow youth to embrace knowledge, although all this difficulty. So I think we could start with 1 minute, 60 seconds to hear from Professor Mare Natshe, president of An-Najah University in Palestine. Thank you.
I am Maher Natshe, president of An-Najah National University, which is located in Nablus, Palestine. We couldn't be more happier to be part of the EON reality and to set up EON XR Center at our new campus. We see multiple benefits with the deployment of EON XR platform for our student, faculty, and community. In particular, we look forward to develop local content in new programs and in new IP. It's also give us a tremendous opportunity to share this content with the EON reality community. We are really very excited to be part of the EON global community, and we look forward to strengthen the relation in the future. Thank you.
So we signed with them just a week before this conflict started, and I've been trying to reach out to them and see that everybody is safe, and as safe as it can be under current circumstances. I would like to go to some of the examples that you have created, but before that, just to cover the question that was posed. The question was, where have we established centers? So this year we've established multiple centers, and last year in various locations in North Africa, including Morocco. This is a partnership with Mohammed V and Mohammed VI University that was endorsed by the Minister of Industry, Minister of Education, and all the way to USAID. It was a big sponsorship for which we are grateful. We have also done the same thing with Mohammed VI, and also with, there's another location here that is called, sorry, I got to Spain, which is reasonably close. It's Hassan Veterinary School that also has joined. Nile University in Egypt has joined recently, and we have several others like Alexandria that are on their way. In Kuwait, we have a partnership with yourselves and others. And we are working also right now for Kheder as a new location where we expect to do a very large launch in not too long distance. So to do this, we obviously need to have support for Arabic, and we need to create Arabic content. So in that context, I saw a video that you recorded not long ago with one of my colleagues, and it was a very interesting interview. And if you don't mind, I would like to share a little bit of that interview. Let me just see 1 second, because I thought you were talking around 12 minutes or 13 minutes and 30 seconds, somewhere there, about what you think about this approach and what you've done. Thank you.
A fairly life-size bird, like how it would look like. I think that's what really captures learners' attention, so you think.
Indeed, Jonathan. I couldn't say more. You described the situation perfectly.
Right.
The guy, he feels comfortable to see a pigeon or to dissect a pigeon on a tree trunk where it belongs. It's a bird and it belongs to a forest. And he hates to see it in a laboratory or in a tray.
Yeah,
that's right. A sculpture to,
That's right. Okay, so maybe let's sum up with maybe just I think the last one or two lessons that I've discovered. This one is about the human eye anatomy. I guess it's pretty much the same idea behind just as what you shared earlier about the human lung, right? Where you not only get the learner interested in an environment that they feel comfortable with, but at the same time, because it's repeatable, right? You can scale this, you can change the dialect, you can distribute it to any country in the Middle East. I think as what you mentioned earlier, the Arabic support is a key component in the use of EON XR for the Middle East. I think we're one of the very few solutions, if not the only solution, that actually has such deep support for Arabic, especially in this immersive space. What do you think about this? I mean,
I have to say that even the Arabic support is not, that doesn't really give the right credit to EON Reality, because they have 3 types of Arabic support for any language in EON XR as an application. First, it supports the text-to-speech, and this is important. Second, it supports the menus and the environment, whatever your choice is. Third, it supports the annotations that you require to put on the object. So it helps you to, in 3 different ways, to have a complete command on the language that you use or you may require to create a lesson.
So this interview continues for about 20 minutes, and we will post this video on the webpage after this. But I thought, while I have you live, to dig a little bit deeper in that question. And so I do have the same PowerPoint that you utilized with various lessons. And I was curious to see exactly what the students or the person that created this lesson was saying. So let me just go to that, and I would like to hear a little bit more comments.
إيضاح حاسة الرؤية وأداة التواصل الأكثر أهمية ودقة بين المحيط الخارجي والإنسان، وهي شبكة كروية الشكل يبلغ قطرها حوالي 2 سنتيمترا ونصف، وتقع في المقدمة الأمامية للجمجمة، ويقوم.
So I'll jump a little bit. So it's an exploration and a guided tour, I understand, in the eye. Would you mind just commenting a little bit about this, and more generally, how you've seen the technology practically deployed, and where do you see the value of this experience versus traditional way of learning? Thank you.
Dan, this is what I've been looking for in the last 20 years of my life in the Middle East. While I was working with the United Nations for evaluating various educational systems and universities throughout the region, to find a way how can we preserve the national inventories using various ways and immersive type of technologies and collaborative. EON has answered all those questions. The application is an immersive, collaborative, online, using state-of-art technologies, almost codeless. You don't have to know any coding to generate a sophisticated lessons like this, or a small lesson that can be in the K-12 stage or even higher education. but both accommodates the various areas, professional training as well, applied training, and so on. So everything you need that you may require to create a perfect educational curriculums and support with native language. I started with this in the beginning. We don't have in our Arabic libraries any content when it comes to the XR technology. We have very shy experiments, not even half of what EON has reached so far. And all of a sudden, everything comes through. And now I can tell you with this tool, with our guidance as a ZENA technology, we can create educational revolution in the Middle East.
Yes, and one thing you said is very important, because one aspect that I really hope we will achieve, and I start to see is already the beginning of this, is the creation of localized content. Because I think that's where really the rubber meets the road. There's a wealth of history, heritage, but also science that is conducted in Middle East in general, that it doesn't show, it doesn't come out. So one area that I got a couple of questions also, the question was here that I see that you have all these models, and where are they coming from? So the answer is that yes, EON has access to probably 1.1 million 3D assets, and that's great, and you can use them. But what we are doing now with this version that we are coming up with is to enable anyone with a mobile phone to capture their own environments, whether it's a classroom, hospital, or artifact, historic in Syria. You have all these beautiful historical sites that you could capture, etc., and preserve them for eternity as a part of the cultural heritage, and empower the people to do it. Very much like YouTube made the revolution. We want to capture the world and not us. And this is property, intellectual property, that shall be owned locally by the creators, whether it's 3D or 360. So in that context, I just want to show you something cool and get your comments on it, because I've been playing a lot. I'm like a kid, and my wife, every time she sees me with a phone, she says, okay, oh boy, another 3 hours gonna go. So she's this weekend she said, okay, enough, you have to pay attention. So I am a little bit like a kid in the candy store, because right now, this weekend, I was playing with this, and we have the ability to put contextual information in one location. So this card that you see here is obviously not really there, but I can share that with other people. I happen to place it on a street, which is probably not the safest place to have a virtual campus, but just to put it in a context. And I shared a little bit of this last week when I was saying that it's very difficult to depict nowadays what's real and not. And all these objects could be created locally starting now, in essence, right? So, but it's the vision that we are painting, and many people have talked about this, a bit like science fiction, right? Oh, it's going to happen in the future. So the vision is the pictures that I showed last week, where someone is sitting with glasses, let's say in Jeddah, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, and many of them will only have a mobile device, right? They hold something in front of their eyes, and they look at an object, whether they're in the same location or different, or a whole environment, not just an object, but a whole environment, meaning maybe 100 meters of a factory or a hospital. Now, when I show these images, many people are skeptical, because there's a certain amount of disbelief. Is this really possible? So I said, okay, let me play with that. And this is something you haven't seen, Dr. Kheder. So here is like the new ability to have persistent tracking. And the persistent tracking is such that you can even put that car that you saw in pure water. So here's me getting my feet. I got so carried away, so I got my feet wet there. But and not only that, but make objects bigger than life if you want. And also manipulate those objects, interact with those objects, create standard operation procedure for something. The system is also responsive to physical things. So the interaction, I like this interaction between physical and virtual. You can see that we see the surfing engine, right? First time I saw an engine that surfs in California. Anyway, so that's that. And then the last comment I have, sorry, I'm talking so much, but I should interview you, but I'll ask you in a second. So the last one is the environments, right? So I did a test on that first in my workspace, and I started walking around physically, holding the phone in front of my eyes. And obviously after a while, you hit the head against the wall because my room is only so big. So I said, okay, that's fine. Let me go outside. So I took a step in the patio, and I did the same one more time. But again, even there, very quickly you hit the bushes, right? The neighbor. So then I said, okay, enough is enough. Let's go out. And anyone can do this, right? I took it to the beach. So now here's what I call the merge campus, right? You have, instead of being confined to a cave, the old technology, I can walk for many, many meters, and I can experience the life size. I can invite you from Kuwait to participate in this experience. Let's say you and I want to do, whether it's a procedure for hospitals, or I want to do just, let's say you and I cook an Italian meal together. Let's do it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the right ingredients. So let's say the vegetables, the fruits, we put them on the table, the tagliatelle. But while this happens, we walk around, but we are not in the kitchen. We are at the beach. And the evidence of that is that when I stick my head outside, I meet the beach. So the ability to be in multiple places and share the environment and interact and learn from each other while listening to video speech, that's something that hasn't been possible before. And I think that combined with the ability to do it in all this data shouldn't be data from the West, right? From created by someone in United States or Europe. This should be data created in the Middle East. That's what I like to do and look forward to work with you. Any thoughts on this? I know it's a lot to comment to, but I'll be
I would like to comment to start with. I really was impressed with the high realism in this application. I mean, looking at the shadows, the light distribution of that, and how it interacts with the environment. This is really a very good job. Good job, guys, whoever is working on this. I can see also Unity contribution to this because I used earlier versions of the application. And I know how it was evolved throughout the time, and I can see now we are moving very strong into the future, the where we need to. 20 years ago, Dan, at the engineering society in Aleppo, my hometown in Syria, North Syria, I displayed the same picture you displayed here, an audience, and there is only one person physical, and all the rest in the meeting are virtual. But everybody was looking at me. Is this guy talking about something from the moon or what?
You and I being the same.
I'm talking 20 years ago. And when Syria was, I don't know. But we have this vision about the future. That's what we share. And we need to do something about it. We are not afraid of change. And that's very important when you talk about the future. Because people, as a human being, they are afraid of change. They like to maintain their old ways. And that's the challenge we always face. That's why we have change management in the first place.
Yeah, you're totally right. Change is painful. And people that say they love change, I'm not sure they are completely truthful. But even I like to challenge myself. I think it's an important part of a youthful mind is someone that is willing to acquire new information and change our minds or evolve ourselves. And I try every month to learn something new. But, the question is, how do you drive that in the youth? And I think Dr. David had a comment about this because I was saying that, the youth today have short attention span. And he said, no, I think that's fake news. The problem is not that they have a short attention span. The problem is that how shall I say? I think he expressed it something like that. They don't get excited. They don't get engaged. The topic is boring, or the way you present the topic is boring. And I think specifically in education, where the reason I show those videos, to be honest, is to express a sentiment, an emotion. There's a sentiment of joy and excitement when I use this type. So, and that encouraged me to learn more. If I get excited about a topic, I'm very excited about rockets or history. Once I get excited, you can capture me for hours. I can listen to you, forever. Fortunately, this event doesn't have that space, but that I think that's what we need to do. How do we tickle our youth? And I say youth, I don't mean necessarily young in mind, of all ages, lifelong learning. And I think this technology has the ability to do that. What's your thoughts here?
Well, it really varies between country to country and culture to culture. Even in the Middle East, although one might think we are of the same race, of the same, but it varies from being a Mediterranean or being Arabian Peninsula or the different parts of Middle East. But in general, as an educator myself, I spent quite of my part of my life teaching at universities and various subjects in IT. I came across the various type of students who are passionate and they know that the only way to succeed in life is to get education, and others who are spoiled and they just want to get a degree. Doesn't matter what degree, just a degree. And
is it the parents want them to do it, or why would they? Is it prestige, or why is that?
Exactly, yeah. Prestige. So something that they are filthy rich, and they just want a certificate. No, it doesn't matter what certificate is, as long as it's a university degree. They don't even care if they get high grades. They just want to pass. Okay. I came across these students. And I came other type of students who can sleep over in a laboratory the whole night to do the experiment and to do it right. Yeah. These have now how to attract the attention of both is the trick. Is to make these people believe in you as a teacher, and all those type of students believe in you, believe in that education is good. It makes their life better. It gives them more opportunities, more options. They can decide better, even if they are wealthy. I mean, they can lose this wealth easily if they are stupid.
I understand. One challenge, and this is not Middle East. This is, I think, a universal challenge. Over the last 26 years or so, I visited hundreds of universities, colleges, etc. And I can see then when you talk about change, a big issue is actually faculty members. And one of them is that if you have been a professor for many years and are comfortable with what you're doing in terms of teaching, and you think you do a good job, and in fact you do a good job at it, if someone says to you, you don't have to do all that. You can record the best lecture you had, like the Richard III performance of Shakespeare, the best one. You record 3, you take the best one, put it on YouTube, and then they ask, okay, so what is my role? And I think having a capability to be that mentor, to allow students to learn by doing, and be on the side and actually provide your wisdom that you've acquired, that is a very important role. And I've seen so many successful examples when faculty member embraces that role. And I think having help like these technologies will be one way. I mean, this is not the only technology. There are other technologies also, obviously.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think that it's a mentality change, a shift that has to happen. And a lot of this hasn't happened before because it was simply not affordable. I mean, you talk about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was doing what I'm doing with this phone, but I had a $1 million computer from Silicon Graphics that was in a basement, was refrigerator size, and it didn't look a third as good as what I have now. Now everybody, a kid in Togo has a mobile device, and he or she can do it. So your thoughts?
The education's process has three three components: the curriculum, the teacher, and the administration or the governance.
Yeah.
Now, the outcome of those three is the student. So that's why we need to consider. He's an outcome. He's not a part of the variable to work on the student itself. What we need to work on is on the teacher and the curriculum. Now, if I provide the tools for the teacher to present the idea and disseminate his knowledge in a way that he thinks it should be, the way he believes in it, the other recipient, the students, will pick it up so quickly and can add onto it. Now, this process of converting the brainware into a courseware is not that easy. A lot of educators fall victims in that. So they tend to hide behind all the traditional teaching and don't jump to new technologies. But once they see that it is easy, it is affordable, that's what happened with me. A lot of educators, when I presented Aeon Reality to them, Aeon XR, they were afraid. Okay, how long it takes to make a lesson? And I showed them within like 15 minutes, the lesson was up and running. That's it.
So, yes, but I also, to be fair with those teachers and faculty members, if you think about their situation, in many countries, faculty members are not paid very well, and they have to work very, very long hours, and they get very little support or money to purchase new technology, or even sometimes in some cases books. And the COVID has added to this pain, because overnight, literally overnight, they have to go from one model to redesign the whole curriculum to this new model. And then if someone knocks them on the shoulder and say, by the way, you should also do this, virtual reality, they will say, forget about it, right? Don't call me back in 2 years, because right now I'm full, I'm overloaded. So yeah, now go ahead, please.
But Aeon has come up with very good incentive plan recently, which is the grant guarantee program.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. So we have the ability, and this is important to mention. Thank you for that. That was a good lead. I wasn't thinking to go that way, but I'll go now. So we thought, how can we make it accessible, available, and affordable? And we have, for special applicants, people that comply with our application, they have an opportunity to get a grant from us. We are using that very selectively for academic institutions that have merits, that are committed to develop content, that are willing to publish this content, that are breaking through a new market, that are dedicated faculty members. But let me tell you an interesting lesson. And I almost want to use a picture for this. Let me do that. You're going to get this screen effect for a second. And then I want to show you this picture, because if you told me, if you and I met in January or in December 2019, and you would tell what I'm going to tell now, I would say that's not true. That cannot be true. But what's happened, here's the paradox. In spite of what I just said, just last year, we had an 890% increase in usage, and that's not so impressive as the second number, 353% increase in assets created. And you may wonder, how come? And the simple answer is the pandemic. And let me explain why that is. Because as soon as students have migrated and faculty members to Zoom, in 6 minutes, people get Zoom fatigue, because it's not engaging, not inspiring. In fact, many students put on the mute button and watch TikTok on the side. So with this technology, we actually, instead of putting more burden on the faculty member, we are releasing them from more burden, because we are using something called the self-directed learning, which entails simply, it's an MIT developed method and spearheaded by our Chief Learning Officer, Dr. Luker, that students get homework, and they get homework to create. So let's say I'm learning mechanical engineering, I get to do 10 lessons over that course about various parts of engine, a combustion chamber, etc. So I need to research the topics in order to create the lesson. So it's based on the Confucius approach of I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I do, I understand. So that's the method. And the beauty of this, that students are fully engaged, they communicate with their peers, they have to submit those lessons, and the teacher gets a lot of burden of his or her shoulder, because now they do, it's kind of jiu-jitsu, it's a remote way to do it. So they take this and they get better results. Now, one interesting side effect of that is that a lot of lessons are created, more so than ever. And even if the teacher selects, let's say they have 3,000 students and they give them 10 lessons each, there's 30,000 lessons, and out of that they select the 10% best, still 3,000 lessons created in a time span of 2 months. That's a revolution. So I think if you deploy this technology in the new way of learning, which is problem-based learning, that's where you start to derive benefits. And the proof is obviously in the pudding. We can see here that, for example, in last year in February, we had a 16% increase in lessons under 1 month. So I'm very excited about that. And if you combine this with the ability to scan your world and create really content from scratch, then I think, which is coming up now, then I think this will thrive. So that's it. Sorry, I'm, as usual, getting very excited and talking too much. Apologize.
No, actually, you're simply stating facts. And I love that. I mean, these are the facts that can talk by themselves, and numbers really talk, express how successful we are in adopting XR technology wherever we are, irrespective where you apply it, which part of the world. You hit a success. And
yeah, I wish that was true, but the real picture is that in the 22 years that our company existed, we struggled for the better part. It's only the last 3 years. And it's not that we didn't have a great technology. In fact, we had, and we've been, cash flow positive for 22 years now. But it's a little bit like astrology. Everything needs to be aligned, right? The moon, the sun, the technology needs to be there. It has to be affordable enough. The software needs to be easy enough to use. Yes. And the mindset of people needs to be, let's say, open-minded or even forced to. I would say, to be bluntly honest, if there wasn't for the pandemic, we wouldn't get this explosion, because last year we sold 660,000 licenses. This year is 400,000 or 450, almost 500. And we're not even June. So I do think this has come here to stay. And another contributing factor is what's happening with our big partners. So as you know, you can work in vacuum. E.ON is a small company compared with our partners. So I'm talking about Facebook, that currently, I think they have 10,000 people working on the new devices. And Zuckerberg is spending most of his profit in virtual augmented reality. We have Microsoft that just received a 21 billion order for HoloLens, the device that we support. We support all those devices for the defense in US. And we got an order with the US Army, not as big as that, obviously, but significant enough to see that this is not just something in the fringes. $21 billion is more than some small countries have in GDP. I mean, it's quite significant. Even for Microsoft, this is a very impressive order. And the big white elephant in the room, who everybody speculates, but nobody talks about, is Apple. We had Apple in one of our events, and they are doing something that, it's not official, but we know a little bit what's coming. And so what I see is the Titans fight for the $1 trillion war, if I may be so blunt, which is what will be the technology that will be put on your eyes, right? Inject in your brains. And I have a question around that, because how much do you use your screen today? Do you get that little app and said to this this week you've had 9 hours of screen time. No, you have a PC. I have a Mac. I'm the Mac and gives that to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. I understand.
How long screen time between your PC or Mac and this? What is averaging for you?
I have an Apple also.
Yeah. Okay. So you spend more than 4 hours a day, or what's the average time?
Yeah, but almost like for 4 hours a day.
4 hours. A day. Okay. So I'm guilty. I know we have 6 minutes left, but I want to come to this.
Actually,
I'm more 9.5 hours.
I am more loyal to Apple than you. Okay. I started using Apple in 1980.
Oh my gosh. No, I just started this year. I've been using Apple for a long time, but boot camps. I've been PC Windows user, which is not really a good way. But as a part of learning new things, I shifted. See, my point, and I have a small point I want to come to, that there's been scientific studies. I mean, the preconceived notion is that we shouldn't let the kids spend so much time in front of the screen. And I agree with that to a certain degree, especially if they use TikTok, social media, and it's really like eating, hamburgers for the brain. It's junk food, but you consume it intellectually. So I agree with that. But scientific studies showed actually if you use it wisely for good purposes, the impact is actually quite positive. So here is where I'm asking the question, because I bet you, and it'll be nice to do this bet, I'll put $1 and we'll check with each other if you're still around in 5 years and in 10 years. So if you were to guess 10 years from now, when Apple glasses are cheaper than this, and they provide you with everything, right? They tell you the meetings, they know where you are, they know who you are. You have probably 5 avatars that are your, one is a personal agent for training, one is a personal agent for your travel expenses, whatever. So you have all this world. You can see at night, you have night vision. You can see like a hawk. If you had a glass too many, it finds your way, so you don't have to worry about anything. Once you have that and you spend, your waking day with that, what do you think will be the effect for people? And will we talk about even screen time? Because then you connect it all the time. And what will that mean for our brains and humans?
When I was 15 years old, there was a program at the TV. It's an American show, but it's translated into Arabic. It used to be called Beyond 2000.
Okay.
So, at that time, I'm 15 years, but that means in the year 1975.
Okay.
That's the time I'm
now, yeah?
Yeah. So they were talking about what will happen after year 2000. And all the new inventions and all that. I mean, science fiction, I like science fiction.
Me too.
One of my passions. There you go.
Yeah, I'm a geek. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, not to interrupt you.
So I like that topic a lot, and I also like to contribute to it. I have a lot of my researchers and master students and PhD students that I supervise. I push them to the limits, to go beyond what I call alien technology. You should go for alien technology. Okay. Don't aim for current, what we have now, or you shoot for imaginative things. And even if it's hard enough, but at least we can contribute to achieving it maybe in 20 years' time. Maybe we don't have now the technology to do it. I mean, at that time, when we talked about having these virtual meetings and in real time, people in different places are communicating and exploring and sharing documents and views. It was a dream. Now it's a reality. When the technology was available, the processor speed was there, the application development was there, and then the will of people to do it. The same thing I'm telling you now. What I would really see in the next future is the 3 things. I have nanotechnology, I have AI, and I have XR. These 3, when combined together, will create maybe a world beyond our current imagination. I can easily foresee we don't have to communicate with language anymore.
Yeah.
Why should we
Elon Musk is working on that, as you know. I don't know if you saw the monkey playing Pong with their mind. It's
if you can amplify your thinking power, I can disseminate my thoughts to you.
Exactly.
No matter
I think it's inconceivable that that could happen in 10 years. But here's my thought and my prediction, and we'll see what happens. But my prediction would be that once our brains are plastic, so we can easily adopt, even to develop almost new senses. You can see with people that get brain damage that some part of the brain that used to be responsible for that type of task is moving to another part of the brain to compensate. So I would predict that 10 years from now, if you somehow forgot your glasses, so you lost the batteries, went out of batteries, low batteries, you probably get a psychotic experience because you'll be so dependent to function. And I can see just me at the beach for 3 hours. When I turn off my phone and look at the reality and all the objects, wonderful objects that I've been interacting, I've gone, I get this panic of who stole my cheese. I'm still walking in a very primitive way through a phone, right? But imagine when you have it and it's so real that you can depict it from reality.
Enhance the human. That's what enhance the human is.
Yeah, exactly. So you know about H2O, human 2.0. That's our vision. And I think I talked a little bit, and I always harp on this, but I do think that about the path, remember, the good or the bad I talked about. But I do think that enhanced humans will be a reality. And many people look at this with fear. I'm fearsome of the alternative, right? That we don't do this, right? And
exactly.
we lose out.
If we don't do it, this is what we should fear. If it's not,
and I would also say that this technology will play an important role at least for 10, 20 years, because if Elon Musk realizes his vision, then everything else, we don't need AR, because then everything is connected with our brains. But to be honest, I think that's a bit intrusive. I wouldn't cut a hole in my skull and insert wires unless there is a reason, like, you're paralyzed. Listen, I could continue forever. You can hear that on me, but I know it's getting dark. I can see behind you. And I know that we have a lot of tasks to accomplish together. I am once again very honored to have you. We share the vision and passion, and very much look forward now that the pandemic, I'm vaccinated. So I got my second vaccine. So we are planning, and this is also for our audience, in July, we will be in Europe, Middle East. If God willing, if the situation allows. If not, we'll come back in October. In August, so July is Europe and Middle East, and perhaps a little bit of Africa. And in August, we will be in Latin America, and then October, November in APAC. So this is the biggest world tour E.ON has ever accomplished in our 22 years history. And part of that is to visit you and your colleagues. Thank you. Shukran.
Shukran. And I really like to encourage you to come over. You'll be surprised what we'll accomplish by then.
I hope so. I thank you once again and looking forward to work together. Take care now. All the
Likewise.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.